So this is the Nothing Phone 3A Pro and this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and they're both around the same size, but today we're going to see how they perform next to each other in this speed test comparison. So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and begin the speed test with a boot up in 3, 2, go. Now you got to be careful with the Nothing Phone 3A because Nothing Phone 3A does have an essential key right below it. It's a little bit closer than the camera control button on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And while these phones aren't directly comparable, it's the latest Nothing Phone out. So I'm still waiting for the 3, the more premium version of this phone that hasn't been launched yet. Hopefully that comes soon, a flagship version. But even this mid-ranger has booted up faster than my iPhone 16 Pro Max. It kind of feels like the same type of phone size, but the camera bump is much larger and definitely very different looking. Some people might think that it looks horrendous. Some people might think it looks amazing and different. And some people might love the glyph interface. Some people may love the 16 Pro Max's clean aesthetics, but the iPhone 16 Pro Max definitely booted up a little bit slower than the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. Alright guys, so when taking a look at the way to unlock these phones, you do have an in-display optical fingerprint sensor over here for the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. I do like where it's placed. It's pretty low on the screen, so it's pretty easy to reach. However, it's not as natural, I feel like, as right here, so you do have to reach down a little bit. And it's not quite as fast or responsive as something like an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, but it still looks kind of nice, and I think it definitely looks unique to this phone. Nice little simple circle, and there you go. Now with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we all know only one way to unlock, via Face ID housed in the dynamic island. However, one of the things that's better about this iPhone versus older ones is that it can see you better in the dark than some of the older phones, and also can unlock on many different angles that some old iPhones might miss. So this is the best Face ID system yet on iPhones, although it hasn't really been upgraded over like last year or the past couple years. When generally going through the software, these actually share some similarities you might not think at first. Like, for example, I think this Nothing Phone now has this categorization here in their app drawer, and it looks very similar to a phone on the right. As you can see, I don't know if I've seen any Android phone look this similar to the iPhone. This is probably the closest I've seen to the way they're categorizing applications here. So that's pretty similar. Also, Nothing does something similar to Apple as well and tries to not overbear the user with a bunch of features. They're kind of simple and they don't really do much when it comes to over the top stuff. They do have their glyph things going on in here. You can see right here the glyph interface, which is the lights on the back, and they have some customization you can do. But overall, they try to keep it very simple. It's very similar to Pixel or something like this over here on the right. Definitely a very simple, clean user interface. And just swiping through the actual phone, it kind of just feels like a flagship device until it starts stuttering a couple times here and here, which I have had. Of course, this is a mid-ranger. I would expect that, but for the most part, they keep updating it to try to improve performance, and it tends to go along the software very fast and efficiently. I like that. Out of all the mid-rangers, this is one of the better performing ones I've seen. Now, you can see 16 Pro Max, of course. Buttery smooth, as you would expect, 120 Hz, but 120 Hz on both. So that Nothing Phone 3A Pro actually smoother feeling than the iPhone 16e, which just launched. We could probably do that comparison too if you would like to see a 3A versus 16e, but you can see I don't really notice a difference between swiping on that and swiping on this through the software. So Nothing has done a really good job at optimizing this phone over here to perform near flagship level. So I can only imagine how good the regular flagship, when they upgrade the flagship version of the Nothing, is going to be. So let's head into the app test. All right, guys, so everything is closed out for both of these products. Let's go into Calendar, and that was faster on the right. And I would expect the iPhone 16 Pro Max to win this test, but the reason I make the video is not because they're directly comparable in the price tag. It's because I want to see how well the Nothing Phone actually performs, since it is one of those phones that tends to have really good performance for a mid-ranger. Let's go into weather here for both. And I think that one, which one was that faster? That was pretty close. Let's go into news. And that's going to be only slightly faster on the right. And we'll go over here to headlines. We'll go to technology. I think that was on the nothing phone over there. So there are capabilities of certain apps and certain submenus, especially an Android-based app like Google News, to be faster on the Android platform. Let's go into Play Store, App Store, and that was faster on the nothing phone 3A Pro. So let's go to apps here, and Play Store loaded about the same as the App Store over there. When we're scrolling, you're going to find pretty similar scrolling on both of these products. So let's swipe up out of there. We'll go into Amazon. So let's go ahead and head into Amazon on both phones. And you can see pretty close. There wasn't a huge deal of difference there. Let's click electronics. And you'll see still with the faster scrolling as usual on Android devices. A little bit slower scrolling there on the right. But generally you can see for your day-to-day stuff, we don't even need flagships here in 2020. Hold on, didn't try to click that. Let's go over here to trending. We don't even need flagships here in 2025 when it comes to just your day-to-day performance. So if you're just looking for, if you're not like a heavy user, like you probably don't even need to spend for the top phone. But a lot of people are going to do that anyway because they want a phone that's going to last them 5+ years, and they're not going to want to go mid-range for that, although the Nothing Phone 3A does have several years of security updates and several years of major software updates. And while Apple doesn't promise their longevity, they definitely still support them like 5 years. So you'll probably get more longer term major updates on the iPhone here. Let's go into Groupon, and we'll just hit over here, hit continue as guest. And we'll go over here to categories, and we'll go over here to, how about oil change and maintenance here? Actually, no, we'll do that one. And as we scroll through, Groupon, a little bit choppier on the right for some reason. Swipe up out of there. We'll go into Gemini. That was a little bit faster on the right. We'll go into Subway Surfers. And you'll see it's a bit quicker there on the right. So the game, but that was like not huge. That actually felt like the Nothing Phone 3A Pro was about like maybe a 1 or 2 year old flagship, probably closer to a 2-year-old flagship. It didn't feel much different. Let's go into Subway Surfers. I bet the Nothing Phone 3A Pro would beat some older flagships in performance. So you can see that we do have a boosted speed here. Even on a basic game, the 16 Pro Max is faster, but that was not huge. Like that change, even in this casual game, was not big. Let's go into 8-ball pool. Although as time goes on throughout the day, it does tend to add up. You do tend to feel like a little bit of slowness, like if you're used to a flagship on a mid-ranger. Let's go into Dead Trigger 2. And you'll see that did pop open first on the right, but it wasn't, or on the left, but it wasn't finished first. And we did actually get into the game first here on the 16 Pro Max. Let's go into RTS on both. And you'll see casual game pulling ahead. Both of them do trigger game mode. And you'll see a little bit quicker there on the right, but you can play both. You can play it on both. So Nothing Phone coming at 3 times less definitely looks more like maybe half performance, but not 3 times less performance. And I do expect iPhone to win here in another bigger game, and tends to do that as well. So 16 Pro Max showing why you're paying more money for a flagship phone. However, the real comparison is going to come when the Nothing does upgrade to the 3, the flagship version. However, the A18 Pro and the A18 isn't much different from the 16E. So if I do that comparison, you're going to see Let's go to Free Fire. You're going to see almost the same as what you're seeing here. So Free Fire, is this going to win on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro? And yes, we finally have an app that wins on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. This could be Free Fire more optimized for Android phones, but definitely that one on the left. Let's go into Call of Duty. So again, there is a few applications here and there that are capable of taking a W on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, even though it's not the flagship phone. Is Call of Duty going to win here as well on the left? It looks like it's in the lead on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. Nope. The iPhone is catching back up and starting to jump in front now, and the iPhone 10 took the win, but that was very small. Actually, the iPhone, just because we're here first, is because I forgot to click the buttons here, but the iPhone did win that. When you're actually in the game, both of them can play the game just fine. A lot of these mobile games are optimized for mobile, so you don't need like a flagship phone to play them. But if you do want like less heat, you want it to run with higher FPS, you want it to run smoother, maybe you're connecting a controller. If you're serious about gaming, you'll definitely want iPhone 16 Pro Max of these two. But let's go to 3D Mark. But they're not, the iPhone is not the best pick for gaming in general. I feel like over all other Android phones out there, just over something like a mid-ranger. But you see 3D Mark was basically the same. And Geekbench 6, faster on the right. And then we'll go over here to Speed Test Net, and that was about the same. So generally what I've seen is that the Nothing Phone 3A Pro held its own here throughout these regular applications. Some of them were a little slower to launch, a little bit stuttery in a few, but that's similar to other Android phones depending on the app. Like Groupon was a little bit jumpy, but generally just kind of like swiping through the OS, using the applications day to day, launching the games, playing certain things. Like, you know, it's all kind of close. So this is kind of like a really good performing mid-range smartphone over here that you would be fooled into thinking it might be flagship level performance, but you can definitely tell it's not when you start seeing a couple app crashes here and there, a couple janky scrolling, and also the plastic build. But again, you're only paying 1/3 the cost of this phone. So this phone is doing, I think, the best it can for what it's given. So it's pretty darn good. 16 Pro Max, of course, we already know it performs great. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the applications. We're going to go through them here to see if we get any reloads with this 12 gigabytes of RAM. I don't expect anything crazy to happen here on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. This thing is pretty well optimized, and you can see it's holding everything just fine. So one of the good things about this phone is even though it's mid-range, this is actually doing better than some flagship phones with holding these applications. Look at this. While it is a little bit blinky there when I close it, it actually has everything opened. Look at this, every single thing. This is stellar performance for a mid-ranger. You can swipe through all your apps. They're still going to be held in the background with that 12 gigabytes of RAM. So you're looking at a little bit of slowness right there. You see when I went in there, a little bit scroll delay. But overall, you know, I'm looking at something that I wouldn't expect for this price. So that's very solid. Let's take a look at the 16 Pro Max now. All right, guys, so when we're going through these applications, you'll see, of course, much smoother. This is mostly down to flagships having better animations and a little bit better optimization. You'll see iPhone is one of the best ones to do it out here. And we go over here to 8-ball pool, Jetpack Joyride. And is that a reload? I don't even think we've seen that on the 3A Pro. Wow. 8 gigabytes of RAM though. We are looking at 4 GB less. And you can see, okay, did the Nothing Phone, I think the Nothing Phone won this. So its RAM is showing why Apple should go to 12 gigs for sure. So I'm gonna have to give the Nothing Phone the win here. There was a couple reloads on the 16 Pro Max. That was a shocking turn of events because in most of my speed tests, it doesn't really reload anything. But for this particular test, we got to call it like we see it. We had a couple of reloads here and 0 there. Although this did look smoother, there was some blinking and scrolling choppiness. This one didn't have every single thing ready to roll. So I will say that 8 gigabytes of RAM needs to go soon. We need to see 12 GB on the 16 Pro Max. But then we get on to benchmarks, and this is where we see substantial differences. Single core 1165, 3432 on the right, and then crushing the Nothing Phone 3A or Pro in the multi-core score. However, we all know that these benchmarks don't really dictate the real world day-to-day performance. I will tell you though, of course, the 16 Pro Max performs better, but I was using the Nothing Phone 3A Pro the other day and I really couldn't even tell. And here in Wildlife Extreme, where we test the graphics, an absolutely abysmal score on the Nothing Phone 3A, 1056, with only 6 FPS on the frame rate. So that phone is probably not going to run the highest frames per second, things like Call of Duty, things that are heavier, only scoring better than 16% of devices on the market. So even though our speed test showed that it was pretty darn good in regular performance, not when it comes to graphics. You can see scoring better than 90% of devices on the market on the iPhone, but there are quite a few Android phones that are now faster than the 16 Pro Max, but this one isn't even close to one of them. Not that I'm surprised by this result. I am comparing a mid-ranger to a top level. Some people would say this is not even a mid-ranger, it's a budget device, but yeah, I wouldn't pick the Nothing Phone 3A Pro if I was going to do anything more than some casual gaming, like heavier stuff. But you can still run some of those apps because they are mobile optimized. That was a pretty disappointing score there. So they still have some work to do if they want to improve performance in this range. Like OnePlus 13R already has flagship specs, so it would be nice to see if Nothing could bring something like that to the table as well. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and launch the cameras, see how they do with their shutter speed and launch times. 3, 2, go. And you can see faster on the iPhone once again. And this actually does make a difference in real life performance because when you're pulling out the camera to not miss a shot, you do want to take a photo pretty quickly. And you'll see that with the iPhone, we would already had that shot by the time the Nothing Phone is taking a photo, although they did massively improve the camera here over the Nothing Phone 2A Plus. So this one is a nice improvement. It has much longer zoom than ever before, 60 times zoom, although it does become digital. And just like other Android phones, getting a little bit of lag there, just like other Android phones, it's not the smoothest transitions between the lenses, whereas the iPhone, just a little bit smoother when transitioning here, just slightly better. You'll see over here though, getting a little bit of lag there when it comes to operating that zoom. You've seen that 2 times already, but definitely let's wrap it up here. Nothing Phone 3A Pro for the price is a great performer. It has a very unique design, nice different look if you like that kind of stuff. Also a very smooth software day to day, and benchmarks don't dictate everything. This thing performs arguably like a flagship until you start really pushing it in the frames per second, the graphics, stuff like that. If you start pushing it there, you'll see that it's not. But other than that, it kind of holds up pretty well to a top tier phone for just general day-to-day performance. And its camera actually looks pretty good overall. I'm not going to kid with you there. It's actually pretty darn good for what you're getting. You also have an essential key with AI features, Gemini integration, as well as ChatGPT integration. So it's got some AI stuff as well. iPhone has Apple Intelligence. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.